Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. FPL Consult here, and in today's video we have the Game Week 8 team selection where I talk through how my team is looking like going into the Game Week 8 deadline, share with you my thoughts surrounding the players in my team, and also whether I intend to make a transfer or not. So if you guys do enjoy this one, please do drop a like, please do subscribe as well, and if this is the first time you're hearing this, we did launch a charity drive on the channel during the international break where I will be donating 20 pence per new subscriber from now till the point we reach 10k subscribers to Mindset Charity, which is a mental health charity, something very close to my heart, and I do want to support what work Mindset is doing, where they are running programs to increase public awareness of mental health issues, and also reaching out to people who do need help in this area as well. So doing really good work, and all you have to do to be part of this is to subscribe if you aren't already, and I will be donating more money to charity. So let's start off as how we always do, looking back into Game Week 7. Now, it seemed like ages ago now because of the international break, so I'll just quickly run through this part before we go into the Game Week 8 team. For Game Week 7, all out, I got 64 points. So it was a pretty big green arrow. I did quite well, I would say. I'm pretty pleased with the performances of my players in Game Week 7. The rank is now 253k. So again, I'm pleased with where I'm at. Not going to get ahead of myself because still the ranks are very bunched up at this point. We can review it slightly later, maybe in Game Week 12, Game Week 13, where there has been a significant amount of time or game weeks that have passed to reassess again how we want to go forward in the season, if we do want to take a couple of risks to maybe try and rise the ranks even more. So I think for the time being, in Game Week 7, this was how my team did. Blanks for Gabriel, Flecken, as well as Lewis in the team, but Trent was the one who picked up a couple of bonus points and also the clean sheet. Lewis also picked up an assist as well from you would remember, a pass to Doku where Doku finished it, but pretty much that was quite a lucky kind of assist as well. That said, in midfield, it was Mbeumo, Saka and Johnson pulling this team in terms of the midfield points. Rogers and Semenyo were quite disappointing, but I was pretty happy with the decision that I made before the Game Week 7 deadline, which was to remove Luis Diaz, who only came on for a 1-pointer against Crystal Palace. And Johnson obviously scored against Brighton, the first goal for Spurs. So he's looking in really good form. And having him in my team already, which we will speak about later on, there are a couple of concerns regarding Knox, but I'm not too concerned about it. I do think he will start. But yeah, in Game Week 7, he did really well for me. Mbeumo continues to score. Saka was, I guess, someone that you could have captained as well. It was close between Saka and Haaland, but for me, I went with Haaland. Captaincy against Fulham. That obviously didn't work out too well, and Saka came away with 16 points. So for those of you guys who captained Saka, kudos to you guys, you did really well. Congratulations on the points. And that is how close it is, honestly, at this point, where, you know, captaincy calls are always kind of quite swingy. So had I gone for Saka, I would be kind of 14 points ahead. But I mean, I'm gonna admit that I wasn't close at all to captaining Saka. I was honestly kind of in the train of thought where I couldn't captain someone else other than Haaland when he had Fulham at home, and that obviously didn't work out. So I guess it takes a different kind of FPL manager to have the bravery to go for a captain on Saka. So if you did that, you did really well. I'm glad it worked out for you. I think in terms of the forwards as well, Havertz got 8 points. So very thankful that he continues to score, and he's been looking in really good form, and we'll speak more about him in the next section, where I did have plans to move him on, but maybe I have to rethink that a little bit. And do I keep him through this kind of difficult fixture run, given the form he's in? And, you know, it's never bad to keep an Arsenal attacker because they still do look very good going forward as well. So that's for Havertz. Haaland captain blanks. Now the last thing I want to speak about is Chris Wood getting 8 points on the bench. Now if there's anything this season that I haven't gotten right so far, it is my benching decisions. In the first couple of game weeks, you'll remember João Pedro scoring against teams like Arsenal, for example, and I benched him for those games. And then now in Game Week 6, the game week before Game Week 7, I benched Rogers against Ipswich, who scored a goal against Ipswich, of course, his first goal of the season. And I started Wood instead, Wood who blanked in Game Week 6. Now, the Game Week 7 comes around and I start Rogers ahead of Wood, and now the opposite happens where Rogers blanks and Wood returns. So I have been keeping so many bench points throughout this whole season so far, So honestly, I am hoping that moving forward, I start to get a couple of these benching decisions right. If there's one thing positive I can take away from it, it is that at least I am having good enough bench depth so that at least the players on my bench are making a good case to come into the starting 11 as well. And I think moving forward, it would help in terms of rotation as well. So if not, that's how I did for Game Week 7. It was quite a while away, so I spent a bit of time to kind of recap. But now let's have a look ahead into Game Week 8 and see how the team is looking like. So looking ahead into Game Week 8 now, I have 1.7 million in the bank and one free transfer. Essentially, I've done nothing to my team, and the aim is still to roll this one free transfer into Game Week 9 based on my transfer plans. So essentially, the team has not changed, but what has changed over the international break is my mindset and opinions towards certain players in my team, which we will spend a bit of time talking through during this section as well. So let's go in goal here with Flecken. So he is obviously having Manchester United away in Game Week 8. It's not ideal, but I definitely prefer this fixture over Verbruggen against Newcastle away. I do have plans, as I've mentioned, during the kind of Game Week 6 wildcard that I went for in my team, that I will be starting Verbruggen soon come, I think, Game Week 13 or 14, around that period of time. So I'm hoping that Brighton also continue to shore up their defense a bit. But if not, in terms of picking the keeper of choice, I still think Flecken is the one I would go for here. In terms of my defenders, I have Trent, Lewis and Gabriel in the starting 11, and I have Greaves and I have Aina both on the bench. So I'll speak more about my defenders now because I think this is an area that I have considered when I should move on certain players. I think for Gabriel and for Lewis, I have no intentions to move them on whatsoever, especially for Gabriel. He has Bournemouth away in Game Week 8 now, and looking forward from Game Week 9 to Game Week 11, yes, it's tricky for Arsenal, but I also do think, like many people, would be having one Arsenal defender in their team, and that is likely Gabriel too, simply because he has the potential to return, attacking returns against these kind of slightly tougher opposition, on top of the clean sheets that he can potentially get. So he's not a player that only relies on clean sheets, and obviously the Arsenal defense is one that we would also back quite highly despite the opponents. So I'm happy to have Gabriel here, and I don't intend to sell him. He will be an anchor for my team. Come Game Week 12, I will build on having Gabriel and continue to load up Arsenal assets from Game Week 12. As for the kind of Arsenal midfielders and attackers, I will discuss my plans as we get to them. For Lewis here, he has Wolves away. No intention again whatsoever to sell him. The great thing is that in the second game for England, he did not play much. He just simply came off the bench and played, I think, about 30 minutes. But Kyle Walker, who is obviously his kind of direct competitor, I guess, in terms of Man City's starting position, Kyle Walker played 90 minutes in the second international friendly for England. In other words, Lewis is the one that is more fresh. So I am hoping that this boosts Lewis's minutes against Wolves, and obviously I am hoping that Man City finally keep a clean sheet in Premier League, because obviously that hasn't happened in a while. So that's for Lewis, and again, no intention to sell either of them. I think it's Trent here that I dabbled a bit in terms of maybe should I sell him in Game Week 9. I mean, 9 they have Arsenal, so I could sell him then. But I look at the way that my transfer plan shaped up as well. There's a very good chance of me actually choosing to keep him all the way until after the Southampton game. So they do have quite a tricky round of fixtures coming up, but you will also notice that these fixtures are at home. So it starts with this Chelsea at home fixture here. Arsenal next week in Game Week 9 is not ideal, so I won't want to be starting Trent in that fixture at all. If anything, I'll be rotating him down to the bench and starting either Aina or Greaves in Game Week 9. But I've looked later down the line as well, like games against Brighton, games against Aston Villa. These are pretty much home games for him. So I do think, like, despite the opposition being tough, I don't mind holding on to him and starting him in those games. And then Southampton is where I think that's pretty much the next best fixture for Liverpool. And then after that, I can look to ship him away. Now, the thing is, the reason why I kind of entertained the idea of selling Trent in Game Week 9 is simply because I've also considered moving for Palmer in Game Week 9, which is slightly earlier than what I expected. So I think it will largely come down to what we see, the form that he's in against Liverpool. I think that would also kind of have a bit of an impact. But for the time being, based off of the Game Week 8 thoughts that I have right now, I don't intend to sell him whatsoever. And I think the good thing about keeping Trent right now is that it does a couple of things for me. in that firstly I get to assess the Liverpool defense against a slightly stronger opposition, where in the previous few game weeks, at least the first 7 game weeks, they have been pretty much facing opposition that is not super strong in the attack. So for them to keep, a good number of clean sheets is not too big of a surprise. I do want to see if they are able to keep up these numbers against stronger opposition, defensive numbers of course, in which case then maybe the case is stronger for Trent to be kept in my team for a longer duration of time, simply because Liverpool are a good defense now, right? So obviously under Arne Slot, things have changed, and Liverpool are actually top in terms of defensive numbers and expected goals conceded numbers. So I don't mind just having one more week to assess Trent, and also it gives me a little bit more lead time into the asset that I want to go for, which is Aït-Nouri. He is on 3 yellow cards, so if he happens to get one more yellow card against Manchester City in game week 8, which is the team he'd be playing, then he'll be on 4 yellows and 1 away from a suspension, which obviously would not be great. So maybe I don't move for Aït-Nouri. So I think just keeping Trent here against Chelsea at home, obviously not the worst thing in the world, but there's quite a number of positives that it allows me to assess the Liverpool defense and also assess the quality of replacements that I'm going for as well. So one more game week is what Trent will get at the minimum. But I do think, looking ahead as well, I really don't mind keeping him. Now, as for Aina and Greaves, Nottingham Forest defense is honestly looking very good at this point in time. Numbers-wise, they've been putting up very strong numbers, and I'm very impressed with how Nottingham Forest have started the season. So at this point, looking at the fixtures ahead for them, it's pretty good, and I'm quite happy that I went for Aina on my wildcard, because come game week 9, he will be very important for my team, because I'll be starting him ahead of Trent, who has Arsenal. So again, in game week 8 now, Crystal Palace at home is honestly quite a good fixture for him. Could you argue that maybe I'd start Aina over Trent? I'd say at this point in time, I'm still leaning Trent, especially after the performance that he had for England in the international friendly, especially scoring that free kick as well. It's just a reminder of how he has many different routes to points, and a clean sheet is not necessarily the only way for him to get points. So Trent ahead of Aina is currently the decision where I'm at this point. And there we go for the goalkeepers as well as the defenders. So now let's have a look at my midfielders. So in midfield, I have Mbeumo, Johnson, Rodgers and Saka, all in my starting 11. And then I have Semenyo on the bench. Now there's no way I would want to be starting Semenyo, whether it's this game week in game week 8 against Arsenal, nor the next 2 fixtures in game week 9 and game week 10. So essentially, Semenyo to me is going to be a bench option for the next 3 game weeks. So game week 8 to game week 10, because of the tough fixture run for him. But you can be sure as well that from game week 11 onwards, when fixtures start to turn for Bournemouth, he will be coming into the team. So that's kind of Semenyo biding his time on the bench. But for the starting 11 players here in midfield, Mbeumo, Johnson, Rodgers and Saka, 2 of them, Johnson and Saka, have had issues come up during the international break. So obviously when that was happening, I was trying to keep up with the news and hoping that nothing happens to them. So both of them have differing kind of issues, in that Johnson picked up a knock in the first game for Wales, and essentially he came off after that. And then Craig Bellamy went on to say that he did not think it was that serious at all. And then Johnson also happened to pick up a yellow card in the same game that he got the knock. So essentially what that meant was that he was suspended for the second game. So essentially he really only just played maybe slightly more than the first half of the first game for Wales. So not much minutes played. In terms of the knock as well, it does not seem very serious. So my guess at this point in time is that he should be fine. And the great thing about Ange Postecoglou is that he's quite transparent, in that if a player is fit, he will pretty much let us know. So I'm quite confident that Johnson is going to be fine for game week 8. For Saka, who is currently yellow flagged, he also had a different kind of an issue, in that he did pick up a bit of a hamstring injury. So he was clutching his hamstring a little bit. It did look quite serious at the point in time, and he got substituted off. Didn't play in the second game for England because he came back to Arsenal for some scans, etc. But at least based off of what Lee Carsley is saying, if anything that he said is to go by, it looks as if it's not too serious, because based on the quotes, and I will flash on the screen as I'm editing the video, based on what he said, it did not seem as if he was very negative about Saka's recovery. In fact, he was quite positive, in that Saka even had a chance of maybe even starting the game if he was still with the England team. So I do think that based off of the quotes, because I'm pretty sure we're not going to get anything from Arteta. Based off of the quotes from Carsley, I think there is a good chance that Saka will start. So my money is on the fact that both Johnson and Saka will start, in which case, thank God, the midfield is fine and I can continue to start this midfield 4 and roll the transfers. Now, Mbeumo and Rodgers wise, Mbeumo has just been firing on all cylinders. I think there is obviously some form of overperformance from him, and maybe that starts to kind of normalize over the next few game weeks. But that's the great thing about Mbeumo, in that he's just a set and forget kind of a player. I have issues elsewhere that I may want to deal with, and Mbeumo is kind of the least of my concerns, and he's going to be in the team all the way. So for Rodgers, Fulham away obviously is not the most ideal fixture, but obviously I prefer that over Arsenal at home for Semenyo. So Rodgers is in the team, and I think at this point in time, looking at how Aston Villa are playing, especially after they kind of drew against Manchester United, I still think they are a decent enough attacking side to potentially get something against Fulham, who defensively have been looking pretty good as well. So that may be a tight game, but Rodgers here, for what he enables for my team elsewhere, I'm very happy that he's still in the team. And at this point, I still prefer him over someone like Smith Rowe. So thankfully, I made the decision to keep Rodgers instead of Smith Rowe for the wild card in game week 6. So for now, in game week 8, this is the midfield 4. Plan is still not to make any real changes to them. And in terms of potential transfers out later down the line, Mbeumo and Rodgers are going to stay. Johnson would likely only leave once Spurs fixtures start to turn, and his slot there is going to be the Palmer slot as well, because going further forward into the future, I foresee myself going for a team with Saka, Palmer and Haaland, in which case that Johnson slot is the one where Palmer is going to come in for. And the money that I'm going to get to upgrade Johnson to Palmer is likely going to come from Trent as well. So all these are thoughts in the back of my mind. But for now, in game week 8, still status quo and not doing too much. And Saka, hopefully he's fit and he will be ready to go for game week 8. So let's have a look now at the forwards. So up front, it's Havertz, Haaland and Chris Wood. So Havertz is yellow flag, so we'll start with him. We just spoke about Johnson and Saka picking up a couple of issues during the international break. With Havertz, it's slightly different in that he didn't even travel to with the Germany team, and he didn't even leave the Arsenal camp basically. So at this point, based off of the word that we're hearing, it seems as if Havertz has a very good chance of being ready for game week 8. And I look at the rest he's been getting over the course of the 2 weeks of international break. It seems as if he should be fine. So my guess is he will be. And obviously, when I look at the nature of how the injury came up, there was honestly not much kind of said about Havertz carrying a knock whatsoever. So this one honestly feels to me as if it's an injury that, maybe it was niggling for a couple of games potentially, and they just tried to use this as something to give him some rest away from the international games. That's it for Havertz. If he starts against Bournemouth away, I've been liking the form that he's in. Obviously, if he's fully rested during the international break, hopefully he comes back strong against Bournemouth as well and continues the form he's in. At this point, because I did have a couple of plans to sell Havertz to Solanke from game week 9 onwards when Arsenal's fixture run starts to turn, with how good Havertz is looking and also Solanke playing slightly different of a role now, dropping deeper and letting the wingers run into the space that he creates behind him, I feel like Solanke's appeal as an FPL asset for me has dropped a little bit, in which case maybe I should just hold on to Havertz, who is the form pick at this point in time. So I'm keeping my options open with Havertz. I'm not going to nail it down that I'm going to sell him for Solanke, even though that was the move penciled in for game week 9. So I will use game week 8 to reassess again. So that's for Havertz. And then for Haaland against Wolves, I don't think I need to say much about him. In fact, he will be a massive captaincy shout. And for now, he's going to be the one with the armband, but we'll speak more about captaincy in the next section. And then for Chris Wood here against Crystal Palace at home, surely now I get the benching decisions right because I have Aina and Greaves both on the bench. So Rodgers and Wood, who I benched in alternate weeks from game week 6 and game week 7, and the one that I benched returned. Hopefully now both of them start to come good when they're both in my team. But usually, knowing how FPL goes, this is when both of them blank. So hopefully I'm trying to reverse jinx myself, but hopefully Rodgers and Chris Wood do well. And Crystal Palace at home for Wood is a really great fixture. Just a bit on Chris Wood as well is that during the international break, he was very well rested in the last game for New Zealand. he did score a goal as well, right? So he only played, I think, about 30 minutes in that game, scored a goal, ready to come back to the Nottingham Forest team and ready for the Crystal Palace game. So I'm having high hopes for Chris Wood as well. And this is my starting 11. So there we go with the team, as well as the kind of change in perceptions that I have regarding certain players. But again, the plan, as always, since the transfer plans video that I released early on in the international break, is to roll this transfer, keep that 1.7 million in the bank. And again, you can refer to that video. The plans moving forward have not really changed much. I still intend to make those moves, but I will obviously use game week 8 to reassess again. So for now, this is how it looks. Let's end off this video with a bit of discussion on captaincy. So looking at the captaincy algorithm for game week 8, let's first talk about the disaster that was game week 7 for the algorithm. It picked Haaland, and obviously he blanked against Fulham, and then Saka, who was second for the captaincy algorithm in game week 7, did really well and scored 16 points. So that's another failure now. So in terms of the success rate for the algorithm, it's down to 5 out of 7 game weeks so far. So it's kind of had back-to-back failures, I guess you can call it that. So hopefully from game week 8 onwards, it continues to start to bounce back. So in terms of game week 8 algorithm points, Haaland is up top now, Saka second, and Palmer third. So specifically the fixtures for them, it's Haaland with Wolves away, Saka with Bournemouth away, and Palmer with Liverpool. So I think the first thing that I also say is that Palmer being here is pretty interesting in that the different sources or the weighted value of predicted points from all these different sources still give him quite a high percentage of returning and even giving him a captaincy shout here. So I think in terms of game week 8 captaincy algorithm points, surely Haaland is top here with Wolves away. And I don't think it is too much of a discussion now because Bournemouth away is definitely not as ideal of a fixture as Wolves away, especially after Wolves conceded 5 goals to Brentford. You would expect Haaland to do well. But yeah, in the past 2 weeks, Saka has done pretty well as well. I think there is a small group of people who would go with Saka this week, but I would imagine it's not as great as the one last week where people went for Saka against Southampton. So for me this week, Haaland is going to be the captain. Let me know down in the comments below who you are captaining and whether in game week 7 you were brave enough to go for Saka as well. Be keen to know in the comments below. But if not, this is the game week 8 team selection video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, please do drop a like. Please do subscribe as well. And again, we are running a charity drive on the channel for Mindset where I'll be donating 20 pence per new subscriber until we hit 10k subscribers to the mental health charity where simply we just want to contribute in any way we can. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button and I will be donating more money to charity. If not, thank you for watching to this point and I will catch you guys as always 3 hours before the deadline. Finally, FPL is back and the deadline streams are back, so I cannot wait for it. I'll see you 3 hours before the deadline on Saturday and I'll catch you again soon. Bye bye.